The process of the beauty of incomplete things basically started in 1996. Has gone through a development of 15, 16 years of script readings, of research, of continuously fine-tuning the script, getting to a point where it was ready for production. And I knew it was ready for production when the characters that I created in the play, the characters of Tommy, David, and Steve, when the actors walked into audition, and I knew I had my Tommy, I had my David, I had my Steve, and that the story was ready to be told. Also, I had very important input from certain producers in the industry, certain producers, certain directors, certain writers during the reading process. So when we did the reading process with 6 different groups of actors throughout South Africa over a period of about 6 years, it continually got to the point of developing the script, of finding out exactly the strengths and weaknesses of the script. And when it got to that final reading, it was a case of a very, very important producer who got to the point and said, this is it. But what made that happen was basically, I took all those notes, I took the 15 years of rewrites, I took all of that information, the discussions, the endless discussions, the reading, all of that, and I basically went back to absolutely page 1, where I just took a notebook and a pencil and basically did this entire draft in pencil. And that draft, this producer said, don't touch it, it's absolutely there. And then went into the process of just finding the characters and the actors to play that. And also a very important part is where the play takes place as well, at the Intimate. I've always been in love with the Intimate from the first day. It's a very intimate experience with the audience. It's a theatre that I've always very much respected. And thanks to one of my great mentors in my life, Christopher Ware, when he said, yes, let's do the beauty. We can do the beauty of the Intimate. It was absolutely overjoyed at using that, and used that obviously as a deadline to say, okay, now it's sort of action. What sort of started out as a dream started turning into reality, and once action turned, or the words turned into action, it was a continuous, it's like a domino effect. And when it went into the 2 months we spent from November, December, one-on-one sessions with the actors, talking about the play, developing the characters, going into that. And what's quite interesting, when we went into the first week, we started going into the rehearsal of the play, it was quite fascinating, because I had to also make a very important choice of stepping away from my script as the writer and actually start looking at the script as a director. And what helped me do that was, on our very final reading, I actually did 2 sessions with 2 separate sets of actors, so that in the first session I approached the script reading as a writer, and at the second one approached it as a director. So I completely got into that position of sort of doing that, which was actually fine. And then when we got to the process of working on the script, I then actually realized, but wait a minute, I'm not just that. You have to also put on the hat of producer. You have to put on the hat of designing it. You have to put on your hat of even with working with the sound, working with all of that. But it was fine, because it was just a case of realizing that it's actually a very comfortable process if you realize that not to throw all of those roles into one bag and say, I'm all of that, but I am the director, I am the writer, I am this. And to make it quite clear, which is quite fun for the actors as well, is that when approaching it as a director, I made it clear that let's make notes and let's send the notes to the writer. And then I would basically have to, as a writer, look at my director's notes and go, and I can say thank you, I can really say thank you to the writer of this play, because the writer has been very, very generous in listening to the notes and listening to that, and not saying, but the words are sort of, that's it, but being very sort of pliable in the sense of allowing the words being turned into action. For me, from a directing point then, was very, very important to actually realize, but it's not just about the script, the writer or the director, but it's absolutely vital for the actors to take ownership of the characters. And once they take ownership of the characters, is to allow their interpretation, their instinct and their interpretation to actually bring the characters to life. And once that happens, is to just listen and be very careful to not, as the writer, which the writer doesn't exist anymore. Basically, the writer is, I don't know where the writer is at the moment, but from a directing point, is to then basically listen carefully and not intrude on that very, very sacred space, so that although you do your blocking, you're very clear about what you're doing, it's a case of you have to allow the instinct of the actor to step to the foreground, and you listen to that instinct and watch that instinct, and I can tell you 99% of the time it's absolutely spot on. And you find that that's where the actor will actually say to you, when they use their instinct, it's also the confidence that comes with that. They will actually go to a point where they do something instinctively, and it is really fantastic. And when they do that, they will go, is this too much? Is this too much? And I would just say, if ever you get to that point where you ask yourself, is this too much? Go further, because you are now losing your confidence. And that's been really a very exciting process, actually for me as a writer, getting to rediscover my script, to rediscover my story through the process of working with the actors. Because once we went into the subtext of it and went into that, it's been, I think I was just being very blessed, having such a talented cast, having such very great instinctive actors that could allow me to embrace that entire process and see my own play of development of 15 years through a completely new filter and through a completely new experience. A very important part of also working with live theatre that I find absolutely fascinating is, specifically if you come from a film background, is to realize that sometimes if you come from a film background and you look as a film director and you work mostly on film, you mostly work on a visual medium, you tend to forget about your audience, because it's all about the camera, it's all about the delivery in the camera. And then you realize that if line number 4 doesn't work or this doesn't work, we can just edit it, we can just move things around and that. But what's so fascinating about live theatre that I have discovered, and through that rediscovered film as well, is that amazing thing that it means absolutely nothing without the audience. And you have to realize that if you cannot involve the audience into that experience, forget about it. Yes, you can use, fortunately in film, you can use visual effects, you can use special effects, you can use lighting effects, but in theatre, it's all about the words, and it's about the actor seducing the audience into a moment of suspending disbelief, and to also completely cause them to go through a range of emotions and not just sit passively and watch what's happening, but to get very actively involved with it. And I can guarantee you, something that had really happened that was really a very unique experience. On our second day of rehearsal, I also found that a very important part of working with your play or with your film script is to understand the art of collaboration, which is not just between you and your actors, but it's between other people in other mediums. So when I know I've got 2 or 3 very important scenes in the play that requires movement. Now, yes, I understand direction, I understand what's happening, but I'm not going to say, okay, let me just think I can now do movement and think. I'm not going to be too presumptuous, to even have that. So I then asked I asked Sean Bovum, who is one of the greatest choreographers and great movement experts in that, to actually, would you please come in and just come and help us with that? And it was so incredible that when he went through that, I also realized something else, is that if you think that there's someone in the industry that you truly respect, that is up there while you are still getting your first play going and that, don't look at that difference. Because the most amazing thing happened, that when Sean worked with the actors and stuff, he was sort of looking at me and he was going, is that okay? And I was going, is that okay? You just don't know what you just did. It was just so unbelievable. Just what you did. But then what happened out of that is that we went into the final scene of the play, which will hopefully, we are going to, during every performance, make audiences aware of the fact to please do not, in any circumstances, reveal the ending, because it is truly an ending that is going to be quite controversial, I suppose, and quite talked about. But when it got to the ending, and we're talking second day rehearsal, we're talking no lighting, we're talking no costumes, we're just talking actors going through the scene. And on the second day of rehearsal, with Sean here, and there were other 3 producers sitting here looking at this, they were all 4 in tears at the end of it. And Sean got up, and it was just a case of, what happened here? You know, what sort of happened here? And sort of out of that, it was just so remarkable to actually, out of a rehearsal period. And then what happened, once that happened, what started happening in the rehearsal, as that once that triggered, specifically with the final scene, there's a moment that happened, which was just so amazing that during the final scene, which obviously I'm not going to say what it is, but what is so amazing is just incredibly emotional that it got to such an intense level between the performers using their instinct and just using their talent as actors, that the one actor actually got so emotional that is very difficult to deliver the last line, because he's just crying, completely crying, and not acting crying, but just completely. And when that moment happened, it was a case of, let's just all, after the final scene, let's just take a breather, take a break, it's fine, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, just and once that happened, I think it's sort of great to I feel very fortunate to experience my craft as a writer and to experience my love for film, my love for theatre, my love for storytelling, my love for story. I'm absolutely just feel blessed every single day being able to rediscover what inspires me about film, what inspires me about film, what inspires story, theatre, what really inspires me, because that is so motivational in actually realizing that this is where you belong. And once you realize where you belong, as the characters do in The Beauty of Incomplete Things, where they are all incomplete characters thrown into incomplete situations, they discover that they only know where they belong in life or in what they're doing once they realize that who they are and accept that, fully embrace that, they become complete. Until then, they are very much incomplete.